And welcome, everyone, to another episode of The Kuehl Show. I am your host today, the insider of the insiders, Tyler Kuehl. And sorry, everyone, we had a little bit of a slow start to the show today. A little bit of a lag because, we were having some issues when we were when we started everything up. Wife is home for the first time in I don't know how long. And, almost was a disaster for how we're going to start the show today. But we're live here on 12 Ounce Sports. Yes, a 4 o'clock show today, guys. I know. It's almost like we're like the drive time anchors you always like to see on your favorite radio station. That's what we're doing here on 12 Ounce Sports. Whether you're watching us on YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, Zingo TV, channel 761. If you want to use the promo code 12 Ounce Sports, get on there. Actually, it's 12 ounce. It's 1-2-O-N-Z or Z if you want to get on Zingo TV for free. My goodness, that should be their slogan, or at least our slogan. I like our slogan. It's very nice. But, of course, we got to also thank our awesome sponsors for today's show, mybookie.ag down there in the corner. Check them out. Lots of sports going on right now. Lots of playoffs to bet on. Go on there. Use the promo code 12OunceSports. Win and get paid on mybookie.ag. And, of course, as always, up there in the corner, well, of course, if you're seeing on Instagram Live, you can't see that, but it's Second String Leather Company. Second String Leather. Here, I can show you guys on the Instagram. There you go. SecondStringLeather.com. #crafted from the crease. And if you're watching us on 12 Ounce Sports, like, what's going on? Well, I'm doing Instagram Live. See? Look, you guys are on camera, sort of, or you guys watching camera. Instagram Live on The Kuehl Show, because you can follow The Kuehl Show at The Kuehl Show, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Maybe doing this a little bit more for the Thursday shows and whatnot. Oh, hello, Casey's watching us. That's cool. But, of course, we got so much going on today. Not a whole lot. Only an hour-long show. And I have to make it strict, too, because I am wearing my Beer City Baseball, Beer City Bunghammers t-shirt, because the wife and I and my dad and Colleen and my dog and my sister-in-law are going to the Whitecaps game tonight. First baseball game in 2 years. It's going to be glorious. We're going to do things a little bit differently today on The Kuehl Show. Cody Jansen, there on Instagram Live. How you doing there, Janner? So we're doing things differently because you know how we've done it where we've focused on the games first. The games that happened last night first. Now, granted, there was only one. But we're going to do it differently today because in about 15 or so minutes, we're going to have Alex Kuehl come on the show, or at least a phone call. He's working tonight, but we got to get his feeling on the Carolina Hurricanes being eliminated by the Tampa Bay Lightning. Of course, we had Matthew Estevez from Raw Charge from SB Nation on Monday. We talked with him a lot about how the Tampa Bay Lightning are. Let's get Alex's reaction on how Tampa, I don't want to say bottomed out. They lost to a really good Tampa team that's going to possibly be a cup contender. We'll get to that here in just a little bit. We'll also talk later on about the New York Islanders at Nassau Coliseum last night, knocking off the Boston Bruins, finishing them off as well. And we will also discuss the North Division. Getting it done. Did the Montreal Canadiens. We'll talk a little bit about that as well. But we're going to start off with the game tonight for our folks on Instagram Live. We're going to talk about the Colorado Avalanche and the Vegas Golden Knights. Game 6 at T-Mobile in Paradise, Nevada. Got to remember Paradise, Nevada, because of the fact that, well, kids, it's not actually in Las Vegas. It's near it. But it's like how like Grand Rapids to East Grand Rapids from here to there, it's like 5 minutes. That's kind of how it is. Vegas Golden Knights have a shot to get it done tonight. They have the opportunity. They're up 3-2 in the series. It could be all but over if the Colorado Avalanche don't get it done tonight. They don't come back. Because let's be honest, guys, the last 3.5 games of this series have been dominated by the Vegas Golden Knights. We look at the game that just happened recently. A 2-0 lead for Colorado in Ball Arena in Denver. It's seeming like they have this in the bag. They got it taken care of. They're going to go up 3-2. They may lose in Vegas in Game 6, but they'll go to Game 7 back home. But then the Vegas Golden Knights do that Vegas Golden Knights thing where they outplay the bejeebus out of their opponents, and they end up winning 3-2 in overtime now with a 3-2 lead. It just seemed like Colorado, like that game switched. Colorado, for once, actually dominated the first half of the hockey game. The first 2 periods, they were out shooting them 21-14. Things were looking crisp. They were looking clean. They were looking amazing. However, it changed. Something changed in the third period. I don't know what it was. Denver seems like a very nice town. I don't know why in the world the home team would have a problem. It's a mile above sea level. There's always the altitude factor with the road team. But then again, Vegas has played there. Was it 7 times during the regular season? Or 8 times during the regular season? No, excuse me. They played Colorado 8 times, 4 times at Ball Arena. So they have an idea about what to do and all that. So I think Vegas just hit that switch in Game 5. They found it where I'm like, all right, guys, obviously we're good at home, but they have an opportunity to do something. Marc-Andre Fleury had to be sharp. Brandon Saad, by the way, remember how that was like a dumb pickup, a move that no one really ever wanted to see? But what does he do? He goes out and scores his 7th goal of the postseason. Huge goal. Massive goal. Amazing goal. Okay, it was actually just it was nothing fancy, but the fact that he got it, the fact that he's out there putting up the numbers when he has to, when he needs to, that I think in itself is big. Because the crazy part is you need guys like that to be depth scoring. You can't have guys that are, his contract's not that big, but you need guys like him more often in your lineup more often than not. And now it's the point, but anyways, 7th goal of the postseason. Colorado goes up 2-0. But you need everyone clicking, and Colorado just finds ways now to lose in the second round. Jonas Donskoy gets his 3rd, so it's 2-0. But Alex Tuch scores early, just under 2 minutes in. Jonathan Marchessault gets his 6th just a little bit later on. I'm sitting here thinking to myself, wow, this is the Vegas Golden Knights team that was similar to 2018. Incredibly resilient, tough to play, no matter which barn you're in. And now all of a sudden, the Golden Knights came back. And then just a minute in, Mark Stone, he's not the fastest guy in the world, but how does he go from his own blue line all the way down to score the game winner? That's a problem. That's a problem. Yet, that's what happened. Mark Stone gets the game-winning goal, his 5th of the postseason. It's 3-2 Vegas. Vegas has an opportunity to do pretty much what I don't want to say what we expected, but Vegas is a good hockey team. That's one thing I think we got to look at this series is it's not necessarily Colorado collapsing. It's Vegas is playing good, but we all thought Colorado was better. We thought Colorado was going to be good enough to handle this kind of pressure. And it's not like it's Grubauer's fault. It's not like, yes, you need guys like McKinnon to step up and Landeskog and Rantanen since that game-winning goal in Game 2 in overtime has been pretty darn quiet. And Kuehl Makar is not really being, yes, he's looking good, but he's not being the absolute game changer that he needs to be. Game 6 tonight, guys, I don't see how Colorado wins in Vegas. Now, yes, Vegas has, they're not perfect at home, but it's so tough to play in that barn. As we've seen over the years, the first few seasons in Vegas at T-Mobile, it's not an easy barn to play in. Yes, Washington won their cup in 2018. They clinched it in Game 5 in Vegas. I get that. I know. However, it's loud, it's boisterous. It is Vegas inside an enclosed arena with ever-growing attendance each and every game. That is why I don't think Colorado wins tonight. I think Colorado does what they did last year. So much momentum going into the playoffs. One of the favorites going in. They play in the first round against a very subpar team out of the West Division, or last year it was the Pacific in Arizona. Lambast them. Arizona did get a win, but I digress. Don't give them any lick of hope. And what happens after that, children? They get beat by a team they should beat in round 2. Now, I'd say this year it's a little bit tighter of a battle against Vegas than it was versus Dallas last year. But to that point, once again, Colorado, and this time it's not because their goaltenders got hurt because of injuries. It's just because they're getting beat. They are losing to a team that's actually really good. So now if you're Colorado, Colorado needs to score first. And I know I say that, and they've done that the last couple of games. They still lost, but they need to score first and get ahead and stay at it for the entire 60 minutes. Because Game 5, since Game 1, when Vegas was tired from playing their Game 7, Game 5 was their best game of the series. Because game 2, they got manhandled. Game 1, they got lucky. Both games in Vegas, nothing. Game 5 was their best game, or at least closest to their complete game, against a fresh Vegas team. If they can at least put that effort in tonight, they have a chance. It's going to be tougher, though, doing it on the road, albeit. But if they want to win tonight, they're going to have to play hard. Grubauer is going to have to be good again. Grubauer is going to have to play the game of his career, even though he played 2 pretty good games earlier in this series that got wasted. McKinnon's got to come up big. McKinnon's got to score the big goals. I don't see how, if Colorado loses this series, and because there have been a couple other teams that have lost, and we'll get to them later on here in today's show, of teams that have lost in the playoffs that are like, okay, they're good, and yes, they could have done better, but look at who they lost to. This is kind of that scenario, but Colorado is a better hockey team than the Vegas Golden Knights, guys. They're younger. Yes, Vegas just plays this gun-ho, go-fast type of hockey. That's what their style has been since day one. But Colorado just has that talent up and down their lineup. They're just getting beat because the other team, and this is what Vegas has done for so many years now, they just work harder. Last year, Vegas, they got beat by a Dallas Stars team that was full of destiny. 2019, they got beat by a bad call. 2018, they lost to the Stanley Cup champions. When has Vegas gotten outworked, though? Like, brutally outworked. This team, Vegas has it, because they work harder. But that's where Colorado needs to learn. That's why I think Colorado is now, the torch has been passed. Tampa's either given half of it to Colorado, half of it to Toronto, but there's somehow, some way, a thing of team that is talented enough to do well in the playoffs, but is not going to because they haven't lost enough. In a very sad way, that's the best way I can describe the Colorado Avalanche right now. Vegas gets it done tonight at home. Colorado season's over, and we see Montreal versus Vegas. Wouldn't that be interesting? I may have to make myself a trip there to Sin City. Get my Habs sweater out of there. Oh, you're a Leafs fan. I know I'm a Leafs fan. Carey Price, though, is my guy. Carey Price through and through. My favorite goaltender when I was a kid growing up. My favorite goaltender now. He may not be the best goaltender in the National Hockey League. Vasilevsky, that's all you. But boy, if he can do it. Oh my gosh, Marc-Andre Fleury versus Carey Price. Marc-Andre Fleury back at Centre Bell. Oh my Lord. The Quebec kid. Oh my gosh, that series is going to be so much fun. That's, of course, saying that. Vegas gets it done tonight. So with that, we're going to jump off Instagram Live here. Thank you all for joining us here there. We're going to give Alex a phone call here, and we'll talk about the Carolina Hurricanes getting knocked out by the Tampa Bay Lightning after a short break here on 12-Ounce Sports. Well, also, like I said, we'll also get to the Boston Bruins and New York Islanders and talk about Montreal a little bit more, and also some other news around the National Hockey League. We'll be back with more of the Kuehl Show right after this. And welcome back to the Kuehl Show, everyone. Tyler Kuehl here, the Inside of the Insiders, back here in the studio which has now since turned on the Women's College World Series on here in the studio. I had it on before the show, and then we had a little bit of a hiccup with our connection, so I turned it off, at least for a moment, because I was like, oh no, we have problems here. Because, if we can't stream on here, that's kind of the more important thing. Because, no offense. Oh, my Lord, she hit it. Oh, man. Oklahoma right now is starting to open things up. This is the third game of the Women's College World Series final, the national championship, do-or-die game. Oklahoma up 5-1 now after a 2-run double here in the bottom half of the third inning. Florida State won game 1, I think it was, and Oklahoma tied it up yesterday. So, big series going on over there in OKC, Oklahoma City. We're standing by for Alex. He is, well, like I said, he's working, so he said 4:20-ish, so we will stand by for him to jump on the show today. But let's move on over then to the game that happened last night, the series that ended last night. The Boston Bruins being eliminated, knocked out by the New York Saints. I mean, the New York Islanders is what I mean to say. The Islanders, guys, I'm more confident in this team this season than I was last year. Is that weird to say? Maybe it's because they're at home at Nassau Coliseum. They have their own barn. They have their own fans going crazy, getting fired up. I mean, 12,000 people strong at Nassau Veterans Memorial Coliseum. And for some reason, I watched that game last night, and it was a good start for both teams. Kyle Palmieri getting the first goal of the Travis Zajac getting the first goal of the hockey game. And as soon as I saw that, first of all, Travis Zajac finally getting a goal. Because remember how he was in the trade that brought Kyle Palmieri over. But then Brad Marchand tied the game at 1, and it kind of looked like, okay, this is going to be a close game. Boston's not out of this. That second period, though, boy, they took it to another level. Did the New York Islanders. Kyle Palmieri gets a goal. Then you get two from Brock Nelson. By the way, Matt Grzelcyk, because Palmieri scored, like I said, in that second period, his 7th of the playoffs, by the way. Nelson scores 2 goals. Matt Grzelcyk got brought down to a entry-level contract in that second period. Boy, Brock Nelson picks his pocket, dances around him, and then has an absolute mishap in front of the net that led to the Palmieri goals. 4-1 after the second period. My wife and I are watching the game with a friend of ours that came over, and she's like, can we change it now? The game's over. And I'm like, hold on. I don't know about that. Because, 4-1 leads with the Boston Bruins, or when they're down 4-1, doesn't mean it's over. But then I clicked in my head and said, wait a second. They are not the Toronto Maple Leafs. That is not the problem with the New York Islanders. End up winning the game 6-2. It was 4-2. Brad Marchand does get a goal to bring him within 1, and it's a little interesting, but the Islanders and Barry Trotz like, all right, boys, we're going to shut this sucker down. That's what they did, and they did it exactly what they needed to, perfectly to a T, and now they're moving on to the semifinals for the second year in a row. And they are meeting the Tampa Bay Lightning for the second year in a row. It's hard to look at this team simply because of the fact you don't know. I mean, you know what you're going to get, but you don't know how you're going to get it. You know that this team can play defense. You know this team now can score. Kyle Palmieri has 7 goals, guys. 7 goals from a guy that was being looked at as an absolute trade bust because of the fact that he wasn't doing anything. And that just shows you that Lou Lamoriello didn't get him and Zajac for their points during the regular season. Now, granted, yes, it would have made things maybe a little bit easier for them to, be a little bit more easy than, when they finished 4th in the division. Yet, they still were able to pull it off. They were able to come out and get the win. Semyon Varlamov has pretty much got the number 1 starter job now, but don't expect Barry Trotz to give him the loose leash, though. Just remember that. He has an opportunity to really turn around and say, hey, you know what? Varlamov's played bad the last 2 games. Let's go with Sorokin. That's that kind of mentality now with goaltending. You can play one or the other and have no worries about who's in net. Sorokin can easily come in if he needed to. But they're going to go up against a Tampa Bay Lightning team that is feeling good and feeling pretty dangerous to watch. The way they pretty much manhandled the Carolina Hurricanes. Hurricanes put up a good effort there in Game 5, an elimination game, but Vasilevsky Daniel looks unbeatable. The offense is a clicking for Tampa Bay, as we pertain to with Matt Estevez on Monday night. So what seems to be the plan now for the New York Islanders? Are they happy with just a conference finals berth? Because now that guarantees at least 2 more games there at Nassau in their final season at the Coliseum. But I tell you, those fans are going to do everything they can to will that team to play at least 3, maybe more. Because remember, Tampa does have home ice advantage. They were the 3rd seed in the Central, New York being the 4th. If it goes now to a case where you're going to see it's so hard to look at this series because it's probably going to start by the time we do our next show, because we're not going to do a Monday show this week. We're going to do it on Tuesday next week. The series will probably start up before then. The Islanders have this thing where they're able to just succumb every offense they play against. You got to love Ryan Pulock, who got a goal last night, the empty netter. Semyon Varlamov should have gotten an assist on that, by the way, because he made the save that set up the goal. I want to see what this team can do when they really face, and I don't want to say face a tough team because they faced a really good team in Pittsburgh who had a bad goaltender. They played a really good team in Boston with a goaltender that ended up being hurt, and Tuukka Rask may have to have surgery now. We'll get to Boston's page here in a moment. Can they hang with the Islanders, or can they hang with the Lightning? Can the Islanders hold their own against a team that is part near looking like a favorite to win the Cup again? We were a little apprehensive of that going into these playoffs. When we heard that Kucherov was coming back, and we're like, okay, is he rusty? No? Okay, this team could do the darn thing again. Can the Islanders combat that? Because don't forget, guys, we're heading to that point now. We kept talking about during the regular season. We mentioned it on Monday. We've mentioned it pretty much ever since we heard about the schedule. We do not know how good each division is, how good each team is, until the semifinals. Because the Islanders played Boston well during the regular season. They played Pittsburgh well during the regular season. Played everyone well, at least well enough to get to the playoffs. Tampa, they struggled against Carolina. They struggled against Florida in the regular season. They get the right tools back. Now they're looking like a juggernaut again. Same thing with the West and the North. Well, the North, not so much, because Montreal didn't seem like they had any business being there. And then all of a sudden they, won. They're on a 7-game win streak now. Which I'm trying to think the last time that team was on a 7-game win streak. And I can tell you, kids, it's been a minute. By the way, quickly going back to the Colorado page, something I forgot to mention. Jared Bednar missed the morning skate today due to an irregularity in his COVID test results. And they're saying he should be back tonight. Haven't heard anything else since. This came around the afternoon. But just means business. Everyone's saying there's nothing to it. Devin Taves saying there's nothing to it. It doesn't sound like there's any issues. They're thinking he'll be back tonight. I'll say this, though. Let's see. An Avalanche spokesperson, before I get to that, says that Bednar was not at the arena because of the virus testing snafu. It was not clear if Bednar will be able to be behind the bench tonight in the elimination game. Since then, I have not heard anything more. Obviously, we still have, right now, 4.5 hours until puck drop, being 4:30 Eastern time. So by the time, if you listen to this, the replay on your favorite podcatcher, you'll be like, what the heck? Of course you know what's going on here. But obviously we're waiting to see what happens later on tonight. By the way, Nick Alberga with probably one of the best tweets of the day is Vladimir Guerrero Jr. more beloved than Jack Eichel in Buffalo right now. Yikes. Yikes. That story is still going on and strong in Buffalo. Jack Eichel sounding like, of course, Elliot Friedman went on WGR earlier today saying that they want to move on from Jack Eichel. And I don't know if it's Jack Eichel wants to move on from the Buffalo Sabres. Sabres want to move on from him. Regardless, Buffalo and Jack Eichel may not be a thing come fall of 2021. and when we get to the offseason, we'll definitely dive into more where he could go. Everyone's saying, oh, Los Angeles. Well, John Hoven put out a piece the other day saying that's probably not going to happen. New York, because they have a lot of money, is a possibility. Boston, because they may lose a couple of players at some point. But there is a lot of questions and a lot of answers that are wanted for Jack Eichel. Jumping back here to the Islanders page. This team is good, but I don't think them losing to Tampa should knock that down. It should not say that this team is bad, because Tampa is now just looking like it could be Colorado, it could be Vegas out of the West. They could beat Montreal, and Tampa would still be a favorite by a long shot. Going to the Bruins side of things here. As we found out, Tuukka Rask was actually injured. He was actually hurt. Tuukka Rask, we thought he was injured when he got pulled in game 4 or 5. We just thought mainly because of the fact that he could have just been bummed out or not playing well, and they want to make an excuse. Nope, he's actually hurt. We saw that last night. But we'll take a quick pause on that, folks, because we are now joined by the former host, now kind of consistent guest here on the Kuehl Show. He is none other than my brother by blood, Alex Kuehl. Alex, how are we doing?
Can you hear me good?
I can hear you just fine and dandy, sir. How are you today?
Perfect. I am doing just spectacular.
Just spectacular, Alex. Well, we were just finishing up with the Islanders-Bruins debacle last night. 6-2 win for the Isles, which would be the team that that would have been the division that Carolina would have played out of. What do you think of?
Yes.
What do you think of just quickly here before we get to the Canes page here, the Crusade of the Carolinas captain, Alex Kuehl, I should mention. Boston and the Islanders, is Boston done? Are they going to get Jack Eichel, or are the Islanders actually that good?
Well, I think it's just a matter of, with the Bruins, you have a team that's not getting any younger. There are holes in their game. Like I just overheard you when you rang me in that about the Tuukka Rask situation. That's another key thing that you have to take into factor here. As far as the Eichel situation, that's up in the air. I don't think that the Bruins should base their entire summer on whether or not they get Eichel. So kind of in the way that they shouldn't do too much before they get Eichel.
Could you imagine if Sweeney was able to fleece Kevin Adams on two of their highest paid players? He did it with Taylor Hall, who was probably going to resign there, not for $8 million, obviously, but then try to steal Jack Eichel for probably a bag of pucks and a donut from the Tims there.
Well, I don't always think that it's going to be a forward issue, is it? You're not incredibly deep. But it's never a matter of how much skill you always have. And I think that's something that you see with the Islanders, because they don't have an exorbitant amount of superstar talent. They just play together well, and they play in the system. So if Sweeney thinks that Eichel could work in that system and could work possibly with Taylor Hall, that is something that could be a good option for them, but I don't think that it's a good thing for them to base their entire summer off that. Just in the case that they end up not getting them and they've wasted, a solid 2 months, it'll be at that point, on whether or not they'll get him. Because I don't think Eichel's going to be going very quickly, is my thing as well.
No, and this story really picked up, Alex, because Elliot Friedman, good buddy Friedge, was on WGR earlier today saying that the Sabres and Eichel, the parties, they want to move on from here. And so that's where this has really picked up. Obviously, it's going to be a little bit more heavy in the offseason, unless, Buffalo wants to make sure everyone remembers that they exist and they drop something on game 1 of the finals or something like that. Something dumb like that. But
right.
Let's move on here to the Carolinas, Alex. We talked with Matt Estevez before Game 5 on Monday night. Tuesday night, Carolina put up a good fight. Unfortunately, Andrei Vasilevsky was there and made sure it wasn't going to be that easy for them. Canes fall 2-0. Goals from Braden Point, his 8th of the playoffs. Ross Colton, former, I believe, played for Vermont. Was it Vermont? I played at the college hockey level before coming up for the Tampa Bay Lightning. 2-0 win. I don't know, Alex. over the last couple of days, I've looked at this like, oh, it's a disappointment because Carolina was so good in the regular season. But like I saw Dougie Hamilton's quote today, and I can't agree with it more. They lost.
We lost to a team that's $18 million over the cap. Yes,
that, and the fact that they are that good. Like Tampa is that good now. They have all their tools back. This is a good team. By the way, quickly before that, Alex, go. Jared Bednar will be coaching tonight. There was issues with this COVID test. I just got it from good buddy Mike Chambers at Mike Chambers on Twitter, saying that he will be on the bench tonight. But Alex, at that point, Tampa Bay, they are on fire. I'm not using the R word with them yet, just for our good folks there at Raw Charge for their good luck. But let's be honest, this Tampa team's good. I don't think Carolina should hang their heads because they lost to that team.
I honestly, I completely 100% agree with you.
As you should.
This Carolina, well, it's not always that we do that, teach. But this Carolina team, let's look at the season overall, because it's always, you can look at a team, but they're at their worst when they lose, and they're at their worst when they're out of it. It's easy to beat them down, but look at this entire season. They played consistent hockey the entire regular season. They were consistently at the top of their division and consistently winning. I think at one point they had a 7 or an 8 game winning streak.
Yeah, it was something ridiculous, and it was when Nedeljkovic was there too. He was the starter.
Right. So it's not like this team's bad at any stretch of the imagination. You know, the coach, we love the coaching of Rod Brind'Amour. I think him staying there is the best thing that'll happen for his coaching career, and being able to go for the cup probably as much as he wants at this point with the Hurricanes. But also for the players, they've done nothing but whatever they've been told to this entire season. They've played well. The Nashville series was definitely a gut check, I would say, as far as how deep can this team really go in the playoffs, and are they really a playoff team, or are they only a regular season kind of team? But even with all of that in mind, it's kind of hard. It's kind of hard to say that this team, they should have won that series, because we all knew, for people that root for Carolina, you were going up against the defending Stanley Cup champions. You are going up against a team that should not exist on paper as far as money goes.
During the regular season, Alex, the CBA rules, that's how they work. The Leafs have been doing it for years.
I'm just saying, on paper, this team shouldn't exist. And they had a lot, I would say a few issues as far as personnel goes. But all that put aside, I think, I'm not against this team. I'm not gonna throw my hat down and say, all right, scratch it, back to the drawing board. No, this team just needs to keep building on what they're doing, because they're getting into the playoffs more. They're being able to get past the first round more. They're becoming a part of the conversation, right? They're right. Kind of like they're in the same boat that the Islanders were in, like last year or 2 years ago, where you're like, okay, didn't really expect them at first, and then they're sort of like consistently being like, all right, these guys have serious talent. They're a force to be reckoned with. They're not going to turn over easy, whether it's regular season or playoffs. And I honestly think that the Hurricanes gave them a good fight. I don't think they look like they flopped. I mean, I wasn't able to watch every single game.
Well, I did. They had no chance. I'm kidding. No, no.
But the games that I wasn't able to listen to or able to watch, I listened to. And the thing that there needs to be a takeaway is that this isn't this team sucks. This is a reality check. This is a reality check for all of the Hurricanes roster of, hey, we are good. We have the skill, but can we play smart? Because the big factor with that series, I will say it once and I'll say it all through the summer, a huge reason why the series ended up how it did, because honestly, I don't think that overall, even if we went to 7 games, drastic happened.
Right.
I think the big reason why the series ended in 5 instead of going to 6 or even going to 7 was penalties. You cannot, like Tampa, time on the power play. You cannot give them space, because another thing too is how many times was there a penalty either right in and around the blue line or something that happened in the defensive zone? Tampa pushes and pushes, and they provide that pressure that they need to, and they will corner you in your zone. So you have to dump the puck and give up possession. They did that so effectively. And Carolina at towards the end, I think it was probably the latter half of Game 4. They were just giving them so many bad penalties, and it wasn't like 5 or 6 penalties. I mean, it only takes 2 or 3 when you're facing Tampa.
Right.
And those 2 or 3 can lead to a goal or 2 goals. And when you're Carolina and you have to score against Andre and Vasilevsky, you need every goal to go in their net and not be in yours. And with Nedeljkovic, I saw on Twitter today there were a lot of people on Twitter and today and the past couple of days. There are people that are kind of praising him. There are people that are saying that he's not ready. It's not his time to be there. That kind of thing. Listen, guys, this is a good transition. It's a good adjustment from having Reimer constantly in the mix. I think he feels that 1B role, as people call it nowadays, very well. He can start games. He can start games consistently too. And I think Brind'Amour really tried to even everything out as best as he can as far as workload goes. It wasn't the right decision to bring back Mrazek in a couple of games, maybe.
Well, Mrazek played well. He did pick up wins. It wasn't like he lost every game he started. He picked up a win. That's why I think they went with him in game.
No, I'm talking playoffs. I'm talking about the playoffs.
No, that's what I'm saying. Mrazek got a win in game 3. He got the one win in the series for Carolina. That's what I'm thinking here, Alex. Sorry, go ahead. Continue.
Okay, fair enough. I was like, when people were here, and then they're going to throw Mrazek back to that. It was a good choice. I think it gave enough of a jump in the Canes' step to do so, but it just wasn't enough. You're playing, it's a David and Goliath kind of situation.
Right.
This team was playing, they were playing hard. They weren't giving up as much as they, you would think as it would show on paper. They just gave away bad penalties, and you just can't do that against the Lightning. And that's honestly a thing of why does the Tampa and Islanders series seem so interesting? To me, it's 2 different teams that like to control the pace of the game. They like to control their opponent. They don't like to be very willy-nilly.
Right.
Which, is something that the Hurricanes have kind of been known for, where they have structure, especially on special teams.
Yeah.
Which I think that's something that, to the same point, is that something that Brind'Amour is going to have to switch up over the summer with a team that normally they play the kind of hockey that is very floaty. They like to find the different chances in 2-on-1, 3-on-2, that kind of stuff, and it's very hard, especially on a power play where your best chance of getting a goal is all right. Throw Douglas Hamilton at the frickin' point, pass him the puck, slap shot at the net, see if it goes in.
Fire everything.
That's not going to be the way you win if you haven't seen like that. So maybe you see something like that, like with the early next season, you'll see some changes to special teams and how they're ran.
Yeah.
Because I'm not sure if that's a Brind'Amour call or if it's his assistant that runs special teams. But nevertheless, Canes fans, don't give up hope. Just need to keep going. Stay the course. Ride the storm. We ain't done. We ain't done yet.
You like Dana Carvey from when he was George H.W. Bush? Stay the course. And it's John Lovitz. I don't know how the heck I listen to.
Stay the course. Desert Storm.
Desert Storm. No, but before we'll get to the Brind'Amour page here in just a second, Alex. But a couple things. 4th division title, by the way, for the Carolina Hurricanes that they picked up this year. First since they won the Cup back in 2006. But, this team was talented. But you talk about Tampa getting power plays. Their power play this playoff is 41.4%. In the series, they were 43.8%. You cannot give this team power play time. The only team that had a better power play in the playoffs, no longer there. It's the perfection line of the Boston Bruins. They were at 45.5%. But let's go to that sort of thing, Alex. We were talking about, you do mention the goaltending. By the way, there is not a single goaltender on the Carolina Hurricanes roster this year that is signed on for next year, except for, hold on, who do they got? They got Eetu Makiniemi and Piotr. Oh, they got Kochetkov. That's right. A couple goaltenders have their ELCs, but they're down in the minors. They are signed through next season. But other than that, they do not have any NHL goaltenders. And now we'll touch on Brind'Amour here in just a second, Alex. Let's get this question out of the way. Who do you sign?
Sweet Jesus.
Who do you sign? Who do you protect? Because it sounds like, or pardon me, if you're Carolina, because they're only going to take one goaltender, Seattle, do you protect any of them? Because it seems like there's more up front that you'd want to protect for Carolina than you would at goaltending, given the fact that you have 3, Peter and Alex, they could both start, Nedeljkovic and Mrazek. Reimer, obviously, it doesn't seem like Seattle would pick up Reimer, so I think he's safe. But that's what I'm saying. You want to probably pick the defensemen and the forwards and keep those guys protected more than you would the goaltending.
To an extent. I mean, I would try to keep your goaltending as much as possible. Just because I think with how the market is for goaltenders right now, you could lose one, sure, but how well are you going to make that replacement? And are you going to be able to do it in a timely manner, or is that going to be something that comes, right up to, training camp, that kind of thing?
Nedeljkovic is an RFA with arbitration rights too. I should mention that. Yeah.
So yes, you want to protect players. You're going to want to make sure that Aho is taken care of, Sveshnikov taken care of. Nino Niederreiter, probably try to protect him as best you can. Dougie Hamilton is
he's a UFA. He's the UFA.
He's a character guy.
Only 27.
But he's not that old. He's a character guy. The fans love him. The players love him. Players will play for him. Brind'Amour seems to like him a lot. He works well with that system.
Power play.
So
yep.
I think he's not going to go anywhere, or they're going to try to make a deal for something like that. But it's not, for me as a fan. I can't say who can you let go. I mean, obviously, there's going to be certain guys that you could totally just be without.
Because they also haven't. Oh, go ahead, Alex.
No. What were you going to say?
I was about to say, because, we haven't really, that's something we're going to probably do more in the offseason to try to figure out with how many players they can hold on to. Because there are the certain restrictions if you protect a goaltender, if you don't. Because remember, we did that with Vegas. Now we got to do it again with Seattle. But, yeah, there's a lot to talk about here. I don't mean to cut you off here, Alex, but we got to get to this point here. A little over 10 minutes left in the show. I know it's going to take us all the way up to the end here. Brind'Amour. Right. Roderick Brind'Amour the first. Roderick Henry Brind'Amour. I don't know if it's actually Henry, but it seems like he's a Henry. And this is my thing, because I'm going to mention these guys here. Dougie Hamilton's a UFA. Warren Fogel's an RFA. Brock McGinn and Martinook are both UFA. Cedric Paquette. Sveshnikov is an RFA. And then you also look in the back end. Jake, I don't know how big Jake Bean's going to be, but he's an RFA. Dougie Hamilton seeming like the big guy in the back end. That's going to be a free agent next year. So why I mentioned that, Alex, and it comes to Rod Brind'Amour, is because we know Thomas J. Dundon, because he seems like a J with a middle name, can be, dare I say the word, thrifty when it comes to certain things like this. We saw with Don Waddell's contract, the general manager. Rod Brind'Amour is still without a contract. We reported on here as 3x1.8 because that's what we thought it was going to be. We found out later that it was not official. That was just the offer that was possibly going to be signed, because obviously nothing's official yet. Now that the playoffs are over for them, there may be something maybe coming out here soon. The thing is with Brind'Amour, and obviously he's come out and said he wants his guys to be taken care of first. The crazy part is, though, Alex, and you know this because this is how loyal of a guy Brind'Amour is. He wants to stay in Carolina, but if someone else backed the Brinks truck up to his door there in Raleigh or outside Raleigh, wherever he lives, and says, here's this, come coach us, he's going to take his guys with him. That's the crazy part. And I think Tommy Dundon, despite as stone-headed as he seems at times, Alex, we know this, he's got to realize that if his team wants to do well with how they're still progressing, Rod Brind'Amour needs to be the guy behind the bench.
All I'm going to say about this, because, I mean, you can speculate all you want, and we've already been around this bush so many times, just with this story alone. But if Tommy Dundon doesn't get a deal done, I think that Seattle's going to have a good coaching staff.
Oh, heck yeah. You tell me Ronnie Francis not bringing on Rod Brind'Amour?
I'm sure that's something that Dundon really has to think about, because you're looking at a flat cap for 5-6 years. I mean, obviously coaching salary doesn't account for that, but I mean, it can definitely do it. It's due diligence to try to save money where you can in Dundon's eyes. Ron Francis has that connection to Brind'Amour. I mean, they play together. They know each other professionally as well as personally. I'm sure that their families know each other, that kind of thing. If Dundon wants to keep where he's at as far as team success goes, he needs to get Brind'Amour's team taken care of as far as coaching staff, and he needs to get that deal taken care of. Because I truly believe that Rod Brind'Amour does not want to go.
No, or correct. Really, yes, you're right. Yeah, you're right.
He does not want to go. But like you said, if someone offers a two men in the truck to say, hey, we'll take care of all your coaching staff. Come on, get in the truck. Let's go.
Yep.
I think he might take that deal.
It's so painful because you see how much this team has progressed under Rod Brind'Amour. And yes, he came in a little bit of inauspicious circumstances when, the previous establishment left, but that's how this game works, and that team plays for him. And with that, I mean, people, that's why I say with this Carolina team, when they lose to Tampa Bay, I don't panic about it because they lost to a good team, and I don't think Carolina's there yet. You can do well in the regular season, but then again, of course, when Tampa was able to add those players there in the playoffs, it really helped out a lot. Yet, if you want to continue to have this team get better, now, yes, to that, we've seen with every coach runs its course eventually. All of them do. But Brind'Amour's course is still on the uphill, and it's still going well here. Why would you want to break? Why would you want to break that up? But it's just knowing the kind of added. Tommy Dundon cut a football league in the middle of the season, Alex. That's why I'm terrified, because we know this guy's mentality and his attitude towards money and just how he treats his establishments and his assets. That's why I'm terrified for the Carolina Hurricanes' sake on basis of how the owner looks and wants to pay members of his organization.
So, well, the football thing, that's a different story.
His fingerprints are on it. That's what I'm saying, Alex.
I can understand that you could make some ties there. You could connect some dots and make a pony if you wanted to. But Brind'Amour is such a kind of enigma. He really is, because I think he's a kid and a hockey player in a coach's body. Does that make sense? Like, he's living his dream. He's around the sport he loves. He knows the game. He understands how to make changes when necessary. And I've heard a lot of question of, is it not the fact that the Hurricanes are a playoff team, or is it the fact that Rod Brind'Amour can't change his strategy, in 2 games or less, kind of thing? Which is another question. I mean,
and the worst part with that, Alex, is that you would not know until you tried a different coach. But then you don't want it to be the case where all of a sudden you change coaches and the team goes back to missing the playoffs for 10 years straight.
Yeah, I mean, you're a sucker if you do it, you're a sucker if you don't, kind of thing.
Yeah.
You can always the grass is always greener on the horizon. But
100%.
I don't think it's a smart move to let him go. I really don't. I think another thing too that you have to think about is that these players play for him alongside playing for each other, and that's why they were so good. They were so good in the regular season. They looked so promising. I thought to myself, it's like, man, these guys, they can go deep. I don't know how deep they'll go, but they can. They didn't end up going deep this year, but I still have that hope in my heart, and I think that this team, they have so much potential. Don't cut it off yet.
No.
Let it ride. Let it ride.
Let it ride like the cattle down there, and I'm trying to think because
or as people call it nowadays, send it to the moon. Stock trading. Everything's on the up. Everything's on the up.
Ride
to the moon.
Ride it like GameStop, man. Let it go all the way to the top. This Carolina team's going to be good for a while. It's so hard to be like, oh, you need a different coach will be. Listen, sign him for 3 years, and if he doesn't get it done by 3 years, okay. If coaches have been fired before, they'll be fired again. Great coaches, no matter how good or how bad they played, they've been fired. You got it, but right now it would just seem the wrong move. It would seem like a very inconsiderate and kind of back-asswards kind of move, Alex, to not get Brandon Moore back. And I know, listen, Brandon Moore is going to take a pay cut to stay in Carolina. How big of a pay cut is he willing to take, though? That's the big question with this.
That is another question too. Yes, and I think that's a big thing to consider too. Is if with Dundon being thrifty as he is it worth making not only decent investments in every single coach, but just because you're taking care of his assistants, do you take less from Brendan Moore? Where's the line? And that's, I think, something that we're going to see here is where's the line? Yeah. And if they are able to meet on that line, or if a certain party's able to go one way or another, that's going to be the tale of this summer for Carolina is, can they get Brendan Moore back, and can they build off of what they have going for them right
now? 100%. Hey,
I think that's the storyline.
Well, the crazy thing is, like you say, you got to spend money to make money, and if they don't bring back Brandon Moore and they start to suck, the team's not going to make a whole lot of money when when fans stop showing up, because we always joked Carolina doesn't have fans. Well, Carolina fans are there. They just only will pay good money to go see the team when they're actually good. And then again, that's for a lot of teams, except for corporate teams like the Maple Leafs, who are always sold out no matter how bad they were. But
I mean, come on. Maple Leafs are original six team. They've been around forever. They have history, even though the reason
fans don't show up to watch the Red Wings, Alex. You know that. You've seen that. You've been even when they were allowing fans back and how bad the Wings are. It doesn't matter if the original six or not. Folks won't show up to watch Detroit.
Yes, they will.
Well,
they still do.
But it's not packed, Alex. That's what I'm saying. It's not like it's MSG where the tickets are always sold out.
Tyler, no, I don't care what anybody says. No building is truly packed unless one of two things. Either A, there is a deal going on, or B, you're in the playoffs. No building is truly packed as everyone thinks it is.
Hey, it was mostly packed when Kelly and I went back in 2016, but we are out of time today. We've been talking with Alex Kuehl, the captain of the Crusade of the Carolinas, hoping for next year as, he went with Carolina. Ride the storm out. Hopefully it doesn't storm too much. It's cloudy right now here in West Michigan. Hopefully it doesn't rain too much, or at least not hard, because we're going to the Whitecaps game with Wixie, and we do not need a wet dog, or at least not a soaking wet dog. Alex, thank you.
You should be fine. It's starting to get pretty sunny out here, so
okay.
You should be fine.
Perfect. Alex is on the road, so he's our brief meteorologist right now.
Yes, I am on the road, stuck in traffic on US 131 South.
Oh, that's got to be bad. Get on Wood Radio. Listen to Kevin Richards. He'll tell you everything about it. On the ones. But we have been chatting with Alex. Follow us at The Kuehl Show, Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. As always, Alex, thank you for taking the time again, man. I know you've been busy, but it's good having you on every so often.
Yeah, no problem. Happy to be on. Happy to be able to talk about some Canes hockey.
We'll drag them on eventually during the offseason, especially when we talk about Seattle, because we need all hands on deck for that. But for that, I am the insider, Tyler Kuehl, saying thank you very much for watching this episode of The Kuehl Show. We'll be back on Tuesday, because I'm not going to be here Monday. Tuesday, we'll be talking about more playoff coverage. Semifinal action, the Stanley Cup playoffs. You've been watching The Kuehl Show here on 12 Ounce Sports. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.